You want to take it away?
No, you go ahead. You're the big intro guy.
I don't really have an intro here, but all right. Yeah, Pete, appreciate you being on. I guess first things first, for people who aren't familiar with you, like, have you always been a pitcher? Have you always focused on baseball, or were you a multi-sport guy growing up?
Um, I was not a pitcher. Well, I pitched, but that was not like what I cared about, gave a shit about. I played three sports up until I was in high school, and I just played basketball and baseball. Didn't really like full-time pitch until I was a freshman. I was a catcher up until then. Yeah, and that's my basic athletic backstory. A lot of basketball, a lot of baseball.
Yeah, fun story. Pete got dunked on by Bradley Beal in high school.
Such a lie you couldn't even pronounce on correctly. Such a blatant lie you couldn't even say it right.
All right, he took a charge.
There we go.
Whatever. It's his claim to fame.
We lost.
But Pete, big time hooper.
Yes.
Would you say you like basketball more than baseball?
There are things about it that I like more. You can't, not can't, but it's not as baseball as much as I love baseball is not, doesn't always hit my competitive juices like basketball does. Baseball's not as, I mean, it's a very one-on-one personal sport, but it's like distanced, right? Whereas basketball, you're in the thick of it, whenever you're out there.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the competitive side, because that's something that, like, people see that maybe watching you pitch, but then, like, getting to know you off the field is a completely different vibe. So, like, have you always been that competitive and had zero problem flipping the switch? Like, is that something that came really natural to you, or have you had to learn how to tap into that on the mound?
Yeah, I will flip the switch for anything, be it. I actually so when my wife and I were dating, this was probably like 5 or 6 years ago now, and we're playing Rummy Cube, which is basically gin rummy with tiles. And I am in full competitive form because if there's any sort of competition, right, that's just how I am. It doesn't matter what it is, when it is, it could be flipping a stupid water bottle, something like that. I'm going to try and beat whoever I'm up against. And so we're playing with one of Lid's oldest childhood friends, and she's like, I don't think this is the right fit for you. And it's like, I think you got him at a wrong time. And so, yeah, the switch flips. I wouldn't say chill, but like I'm not the same cat, here talking on a podcast, that I would be out there if we were playing spike ball, since I saw that Zombro is a rumored plus spike ball.
That's not a rumor. That's a fact.
It's a fact.
That is a fact.
So it's self-appointed.
It is. It is. But I agree with your point. I think we said this last night at dinner. You gotta check out to check in. So what's your check-in moment?
My check-in moment. I don't know. There's like stages of it, right? Where I'm like, once I throw like my last plyos and wherever it is, bullpen in our back room at the Trop. After that, it's locked in. Like, that's about, you get to the seventh and the joking's done. You're down there and you're ready at that point. You're waiting for, I throw my plyos. I give myself about a half inning to just sit down, lock in, and then after that, I start going through my routine whenever the phone rings.
How beneficial do you find it to have such I don't want to call it an alter ego, because it is part of who you are, but like how beneficial is it for you to be the person you are off the field and then have that ability to turn it on? Because a lot of guys who are
Right.
always turned on,
Right.
and you get tired of them. But how beneficial is that for you?
Yeah, it's I don't think that you can do what we do without, being some moderately. Like, yeah, obviously there's people who are, basically the same guy on the mound, off the mound, wherever. But I don't know, to pitch in situations where the shit matters and, you got to tap into everything you've got. I don't think that you can live life, like that. It's not a sustainable type thing. And I don't know, it just helps me kind of compartmentalize, everything that I'm doing in the baseball field ends at the baseball field, and I can leave it there, right? Obviously there's some carryover, bad outings, etc. But, you do your best to to figure out how to take that, separate it, leave it at the field, or when you get out of your car at home, whatever, and go out and live the rest of your life. And then obviously you check back in, right, and that seventh inning rolls around, and you're right back to it.
The wife and 2 kids, does that help now?
Yeah, I mean, it's having I don't think that I'd be a really bad parent if I parented like I do.
If you parented like you pitch,
yeah.
you'd be brutal.
Oh, I'd be horrible. I would be the physical altercations with children, and that, we can't do that.
I told him this last night, and I'm not going to name names on the podcast, but I've named them to you. We may or may not have had a couple guys in from the AL East this offseason, and this was around the time that Pete had come in, and he had just stayed with me, and they saw him or whatever, and one of the guys that I work with asked me, he was like, hey man, like, what do you got on Fairbanks? And I was like, oh, I really like Pete, like, intelligent guy, like, can have really, really in-depth discussions. Like, I thoroughly enjoy it. High IQ guy, right? And they're like, oh, like, I didn't think he was like that. I just thought he was an asshole.
Yeah, Yarb's got the same thing, actually. We went to Kansas City. Got some people asking about my if I was as unhinged,
mannerisms.
my mannerisms, if I was more or less as unhinged as
Right.
I appear at times.
I told him, I said, look, just make sure you don't call time too much, just to step out of the box. You saw that was the Baltimore series.
Right.
You can pull the video for the podcast. It'll be a good one.
It was a funny one.
You'll see Pete in good form.
How would you describe so people can kind of like relate a little bit to watching you pitch, but like how would you describe your own mentality on the mound? Are you angry or hyper aggressive? Are you like cursing the batter under your breath? Like is it like you versus him? Like what's going on in your mind, or are you not even really registering it on that side of things?
I mean, there's an element to it, right? But for me, what I've found is I have one singular thing that I tell myself that I focus on, and that is attacking the strike zone. And everything else, obviously 2 strikes, it becomes a little bit more like, yeah, try and hit this, right? But for me, attacking the zone is where I have found that I keep, my best headspace. It does not become like this personal battle against people. It doesn't become overly emotional, etc. It is me and attacking the strike zone. And then, everything else that comes out of that whenever, you get to a moment, this big spot, whatever, that's when the emotions and everything, kind of come out. But for me, whenever I go out there, it is, I am attacking the strike zone. This is what I'm doing, and I'm going to commit to it and continually try and throw the ball over the plate.
Have you experimented with maybe being like as amped up as possible, or like in that, hey, I'm angry at the batter? Like, have you played on both ends of the spectrum and found that like when you get over that certain threshold, it's too much, or is for you there's not such a thing as being too amped up?
Yes and no. I haven't tried to necessarily experiment with it. There's times where I feel like I'm too low and something snaps me back into like that ideal state. But I would say that the more emotional and angry, the worse I pitch. So that's why I try and give myself something outside of that. I am committed to this and this alone. And it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what the umpire does. It doesn't matter what the people behind me do. It is me, the baseball, and attacking the strike zone.
I think we can give Snides a little ego boost in this podcast.
I give Snides ego boosts all the time.
Well, I mean, just talk about coming from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know your shit's been really good for a while, but talk about going to Tampa, what that was like, working with Snides, because people from the outside don't probably understand that dynamic.
Yeah.
Walk us through it.
So I will put it on record. I put it on. Kyle Snyder is the best pitching coach I've ever met, and I don't know if anybody will ever be that. Like his blend and what he does, from the personal to understanding how things work when throwing a baseball, is the best I've ever encountered. And he, for me, like personally for me, what his message was, and he's said it since 2019 now, it's just hit my shit. Right? His message to me is take what you got and tell them to try and fucking hit it. And for me, that resonates, right? Because that's That's more of like a, a basketball, like competitive mentality than it is, a true pitching one. Is here. It's me versus you. Throw the ball over the plate, see what you got. And that was something that I not necessarily didn't get with Texas. I kind of got in my own way there at times in terms of getting too involved into what other people think I should be doing. I had Eric Gagne told me when I first got called up, he's like, never look at a scouting report. And so naturally I went up and I read the scouting reports. It told me to throw down and away fastballs, even though I throw carry balls, right? And that, kind of got in my own head there, tried to do too much for the time that I was with Texas, get traded. I still had some struggles at first with Tampa, still over the next few years, but that mentality of hit my shit, I think is one of the best things that's happened to me. And obviously, Snides is the number one reason behind that.
Talk about that balance between the analytics, the data side. Like obviously, you have some interest in that side of things, but at the same time, like what you're describing is very much like a simplified approach. It's not trying to be super fine. It's not trying to nibble. It's not necessarily trying to. It doesn't sound like you're obsessing about all the little details. Or how do you kind of balance those two things of making it, this desire to make it complex versus this desire to simplify it?
Yeah, I don't really think so. This is going to not sound bad. When you get the ball on the mound, analytics don't mean shit, right? All that does is tell you what your stuff does. It's your job to go out there and compete, because that's what, at the end of the day, it matters is, do you get the outs when it counts, right? When you're on that mound and you're faced up against somebody, do you get the outs, right? I can throw 24 balls in a bullpen and, throw a sweeper, throw a cutter, whatever, right? But if I go out there and I'm consumed by, data and feeling like what I'm doing is, and like letting the minutia become, the main portion, that doesn't help anybody, right? My job is to go out there and get people out. And so that's, I like the data, right? It tells me what my stuff does and where to use it. But when I'm out there, it's me and you, and I'm going to try and get you out. And that's, kind of how I think it should be as a pitcher. You have everything that tells you what you should do and why you should do it. But when you're out there, like, you can't be obsessing over that, right? You got to go out there and compete.
I'm curious what your approach is when you do eventually encounter some sort of struggle in a situation. Maybe it's a leadoff walk, maybe it's you give up a leadoff double. Like, what is your routine when things don't go right? Are you to be able to refocus and attack the next guy in those pressure situations?
Yeah, with the pitch clock makes it a little different. You don't have as much time to kind of like take that for yourself, right, and refocus, which I think it doesn't make sense to me, right? But no, I'll usually look up the foul pole, deep breath. Obviously, I'd be a shorter deep breath, and it usually is. I'll find the top of the foul pole, a deep breath. I'll tell myself, attack the strike zone, and I'm back on the mound. And that is, even times when it's good, I'm like, okay, this gets me back, this gets me focused, this gets me centered. This is what I do to get back on track. Even if, things are good, things are bad. When I want to execute a pitch or feel like I haven't done that to the best of my capabilities, I'm looking up there, I'm taking my breath, I'm attacking the strike zone, and I'm back on the mound.
I'm curious too about your strategy for hitting spots. Like, when you think about your focal point, are you thinking about like the strike zone as a whole? Are you looking at the entire catcher's body and just trying to throw it through the center of him? Are you looking at just the mitt? Are you looking at like very small targets, or kind of more soft focus, larger targets, and just attacking a big target?
I'd say it's pretty soft focus. I'm thinking, up, down. I think that there's times where I could, maybe refine the focus, and maybe that's my next step in doing that, is to fine tune it just that little bit more. But it's a pretty large focus.
I'm pretty broadly,
I'm trying to attack you in
half.
the big parts of the strike zone, and after that, then we go here, then we go there. Like, it's big to out of the strike zone, basically. I'm trying to be ahead in the middle, and then go from there.
Do you think that pitchers without, plus stuff can perform that way and still find benefit from simplifying it and just trying to attack general areas of the strike zone? Or do you think pitchers, like softer throwing, crafty guys, need to be super precise with their focal points?
No. Everybody should live on the white. You have to live on the white, right? Because even if you're trying to throw a middle, what are the odds that somebody that's throwing sinkers is going to be middle, right? Everything starts from being over the plate and ahead, right? So I would say it is even more important for the guys who don't have plus stuff to be over the plate and be ahead, because then everything goes from there, and you can then, use the, maybe your flush command, maybe, you've got something else that plays for you besides elite velocity, etc. And to put yourself in the best advantages, you have to be ahead in the count. And I think that throwing to the big part of the plate is where everything starts.
I think the stand line. I don't know
Yes.
if you're gonna, you know exactly where I'm going.
Well, Stan had a lot of lines.
The reference to about finding out how good you are.
Yeah. And yes, Stan was. I don't know if I'm going to misquote, but if you want to find out how good you are, throw the ball over the plate. Right. That's where it all starts. I also had Stephen Mintz, who was my manager in low A, pitching coach in high A. We got into it a couple times because, of course. But Mintzy would always say, as he was, "Don't give it up. Don't give it up quick." Right. So throw it over the plate. See what happens. That's you. There's another stand line. Until we find a better way to pitch, throw strike one. I've never met anybody that's better behind in the count than they are ahead. So, and yeah, the ball's got to be over the plate. That's where everything starts.
What do you think about this idea? This is more pushed like from high school pitching coaches and college pitching coaches. They're like everybody at the next level, the guys on TV, this idea that they can all just hit their spots every time. Like they're missing by 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches. How often do you get away with just blatantly missing your spot and still find a way to have success?
Watch. I would encourage any pitching coach at any level, pull up a Tampa Bay Rays game and watch where our catchers set up. And just watch. And they will be surprised, one, with where they set up, and two, how many times do people absolutely dot a baseball, right? It's not that prevalent, right? You're trying to be in your area, be it up, down, quadrant, whatever. But I mean, with us, Frankie and CB are in the middle, right? And then obviously we're doing stuff, within that when you get ahead in the count, etc. But like they're in the middle, be it up in the middle, down in the middle, everything starts over the big part of the plate.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there because from the data perspective, one thing I have liked looking at is competitive pitch rate.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is a huge Tampa philosophy, but also Morgan Ensberg in Double A. He and I talked about this all the time. You're a north-south guy.
Yes.
Like I'm an east-west guy. You'd be an east-west guy. But one of the things he was saying, and this is an all-star hitter.
Right.
I mean, Mo had great years in Houston. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at competitive pitches, if we're bucketing, the ball has to be within X inches of the quote-unquote strike zone,
Mm-hmm.
up, down, left, right. If a ball starts off the plate east-west to a certain extent, unless you've got really elite shit that you're backdooring, front-dooring, etc., generally the hitter doesn't have to make a decision.
Right.
Like from your standpoint, I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, that probably pertains to you. When you're over the plate, north-south, doesn't matter how high or really how low, a hitter has to make a decision. Yes. I mean, you see Glass get those swings on 45-foot curveballs. Hitter has to make a decision when it's north-south over the plate.
Yes, and I think, maybe for like the East-West, how many times do you see East-West guys start something in the middle and it ends up nowhere near the strike zone, right? Like that, even for them, it's obviously you have to play it a little different than just a North-South guy. Actually, Winston McDavis, were you there? It was 2 years ago, I think. So Winston Doom is our pitching analytics guy, and Winston drew a strike zone. And he was trying to talk about tunneling or the myth of tunneling, whatever. And he said, if you're a north-south guy, you just put 2 dots right in the middle of the strike zone. He was like, you just start it all there and let it go that way or that way, right? He was like, obviously, east-west, you have some finagling to do within that, but it's still white. It just changes where you are on, that part of the plate.
Awesome. I'm curious with kind of switching gears to your mechanics a little bit, because that's something that a lot of people are curious about. They've definitely evolved over time. You're kind of known as one of these short arm action guys, like in the conversation with the Joe Kellys, the Lucas Giolito's now. I know we kind of know the backstory, but curious, like for people that don't know, how did that come about? Was that a choice you made on your own? Was that a coach that came to you and said, hey, we need to make a change here? And then how did you actually implement that change? Was that just consciously like, I'm just not going to let my arm extend? Was that weighted balls? Was that certain drills? How did that whole thing come to be?
So I had my second Tommy John in August of 17. And that winter, I'm working at a facility I worked at in St. Louis, talking to my buddy Andy Marks. And I'm like, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change this, right? I don't think what I'm doing is not sustainable for health or for stuff. I was like, I think it will be very much beneficial for me to change this. And I was like, and my first example, right, was Joe Kelly. I was like, he threw like me, big long arm swing, changed it, and started ripping out 104s fairly frequently. I would say he was frequently throwing very hard. Not that he didn't throw hard before, but it like jumped and was more consistent with that. And so started there, started watching a ton of video. The biggest thing then was once I was cleared right on my rehab, I started doing med ball drills, just like catching here to shot put, just to feel that short stroke and go. So get out to Arizona in April, and I talked to Keith Comstock and our other rehab coordinator, Sean Fields, who was the medical. I was like, look, I'm going to do this. No, regardless of what you guys say, I would appreciate it. Like, you know, let me try it. Tommy was on board. Everybody was cool.
I could never see you saying, I'm going to do this no matter what you guys say.
So from there, it was, I was able to do a few weighted balls, and just kind of focus on really just pulling it basically from here to here, right? And not letting myself feel like I was swinging it, getting the wrist behind anything. And then I had, let's see, 25, 50, 75. What are we looking at? 150 throws at like 8 distances. So if you're looking to have your brain change something, making a ton of throws over, a 4-month rehab program was perfect for me, right? So I had my TJ rehab, and every throw I'm thinking, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm doing it. And then, I think it all kind of clicked into place between that, getting stronger in the weight room. I definitely became a much better athlete over that rehab time from like just the center of mass, core control, being able to move my center better, stronger on, posterior side, upper body, everything. And then kind of once we started getting to 105, 120 and on the mound is when the velo really started to kind of click, and it was there. I've talked to several rehabbers from Texas or people that have had TJ that were there and saw me rehab or I was friends with, etc. And I was like, look, for me, it was I changed the arm action, and every part of my rehab with the velocity ranges that Meister gave, I tried to make every throw at the max velocity that they wanted at the time. And were there times where I was ahead? Yeah, or above it, and they were frustrated with me? Yes, but my goal was to be at the top for the entire time, if not, one above, as long as I didn't feel like I was physically challenged. Didn't feel like it was detrimental to be at that velocity. And that was that in terms of kind of revamping everything and putting on a little extra.
Yeah. And that was just to clarify, I know you hit on this, that was your second TJ.
Oh yeah, I had my first one at 17.
First one?
Yeah, first one I was 17. The second one was in 17.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
Did you feel like your lower half mechanics or the rest of your mechanics had to kind of change around to accommodate this new, shorter, quicker path? Or did you feel like at least in your mind and your intent was to kind of keep the same lower half you had before?
I didn't really ever think of the lower half. I figured if I changed the arm stroke, however I organized was going to be how I organized. And I think that there's the validity to making sure the lower half is within. I don't think that there's an ideal, right? But I think that as long as you are consistent with getting your pelvis open and your arm up at foot strike, it'll organize how it needs to organize for you to throw hard or to the best of your capabilities.
I think it says a lot, especially now, like I think about Brock, right? So 2 guys who had very, very successful roads off of a TJ. And it's literally just to your point, and I think this requires insane dedication that not many people realize. Like Brock had a pushy arm, was out of plane, He had the TJ rehab, he had the bone spurs. So essentially he has 15 months, actually less than that, to completely revamp himself. And he does.
Right.
And he's up 4 to 5 miles an hour or more at age 31. Whereas, just like in your case, you're fully committing to that. And I think people are scared of that. Well, I already know your mental side of this one. But what was the conscious saying of like, you know what, like, yes, I'm a professional baseball player, and you had thrown relatively hard out of the old mechanics. And as Ben said, when I showed him the first video of you in slow-mo, and this video will be in, the slow-mo bullpen of you by yourself, crossbody, your arm is so late.
Oh, so bad.
But it's like, but I mean, you literally just like you said, if you throw 95 with shitty mechanics, you're going to throw 100. And fully committing to getting the arm up on time, and here he is.
I'm curious from your take on how it felt different. Like, you kind of had this intuition, like I've had 2 TJs, like something's off. Did it feel like less stress on your arm once you changed it? Did it feel like, hey, my arm's in a better spot? Like, it felt more natural, fluid? Like, was there a difference in perception of like the stress on your arm, or how your arm unwound, or how easy the ball came out of your hand, or anything like that once you made the change? That you knew you were on the right track pretty
Not
early on?
necessarily. I think besides changing the arm, I think the biggest for me was the posture as I'm going down the mound. I think that with that being more upright and more kind of stacked from the pelvis up, I think that was kind of the biggest thing, like looking back, that I've noticed, is that like with that, when that is good and I don't feel like I'm going either way, mainly forward, everything just feels easy and good. Yeah, I would say that there definitely doesn't feel, to me, it just feels free. It feels like I'm throwing, like I'm just grabbing the ball and I'm chucking it like I'm in the infield or catching, etc. And there's still definitely tendency to that in my catch play that I do every day, where I'm trying to, move side to side, throw the ball, feel athletic. And yeah, for me, it's still being an athlete. I do not want anybody to ever mistake me as having like the show number 2, like stock riding number 2 mechanics. I think that's, it might work for somebody who needs those constraints, but everybody that's throwing a baseball is athletic, and they need to treat it as such.
He's a big athletic throwing type guy, like arm action freestyle. You've been doing like the PFA backwards walking throws for a bit. I mean, I remember, I guess it would have been 2020 camp. I thought him and Andrew Kittredge, I think Oliver was a part of this too. I go out, we're playing catch one of the first days, and like I see them taking multiple gloves. All of a sudden, I just see 9-ounce balls rocketing at each other. And I'm like, what is going on? But he's always integrating it with something like that on the field, in catch play, athletic throws, different weighted baseballs, etc. Like, definitely not scared of the variable stimulus.
No, well, I mean, if you want to really get into it, every baseball that we get from the ump is different, right? You're never throwing the exact same thing over and over again. So I also think that in terms of body proprioception, why would you not? Like, there's so many benefits. Like I throw an 11-ounce ball every day. It feels good to spin. It feels good to make sure that if you throw an 11-ounce ball wrong, it's not going to feel very good, right? So just the stimulus from that, the stimulus from being able to spin it, you can see if it's cutting, if it's dying, whatever, to like a clean fuego, which is good. It might have got me in a bad habit or two that I had to then rectify just from feeling like I'm almost too inside the baseball at times. But that is also something conscious that I have to fight against, because I'm better when I'm on the outside. Like, these 2 fingers close to being at the same time, as much as 2 different length digits can be. Yeah, I throw everything,
Yeah. You love throwing.
Yeah, I like to throw.
I'm curious how the posture changed during that time. Was that a conscious focus too? You were trying to shorten up and make the posture more upright, or did that arise?
I think it kind of arose from not feeling like I was like having to counterbalance to get my arm up in time. Just that, and just being more aware of it and focusing on it in terms of, I wouldn't say that I focused on it when I threw, right? This was more of a weight room, off the field,
med ball stuff,
life thing, where that changed and we were able to get a little more synced up from thorax to sacrum and go from there.
And your slot completely changed.
Yeah, slot
So you
way
were like
higher.
you were like relative lower-ish 3/4.
Yeah, I think a lot of that probably just. I think it's gone up. So in 19, it was. I don't know the exact numbers. It definitely got higher to the end of 19 and 20, and I think that was just from really trying to be like behind it and carry it that I got a little, and I didn't do it by like climbing the arm by itself, right? It just became more trunk tilt to get up.
Yeah. And it makes the death ball play even better.
Yes, it does.
Pete, CEO of Death Ball, Death Grip, Death Pitch community. So kudos to him for that.
Do you want to explain the death pitch to people?
I mean,
What we're
this
calling the death pitch?
is Alex Katchler's thing. So Katchler's in charge of this, but essentially it is the depthy breaking ball with minimal glove side. Different guys can throw it different ways. Pete is an elite supinator, so his is a little bit different. Katchler has brilliant ideas of how to make this work with multiple people, but essentially it's limited glove side movement. So like Pete's breaking ball, especially visually, it'll allude to like straight depth.
Yes.
And I know you've had some talks with analytics folks about calling it a curveball or a
Yes.
slider. You can have that debate, however.
Yes.
I'll just call it the death pitch.
Yeah. You throw it, you name it. So, and but it's called a slider. It probably profiles. I don't know what it profiles as, to be honest.
It's almost splitter move, like power splitter
my
movement,
breaking
right?
ball, and not as much. If you throw a splitter at
Less
negative
arm
10,
side.
if you throw a splitter at negative 10, you're the greatest pitcher to ever
Right.
live, I think. But yeah, it's basically a modified curveball grip, kind of a fake spike, and I just try and rip it like a curveball, but I throw it hard, right? Relatively, it's like probably average like 84.8, 85, and I just try and pull down over the top of it from a high slot, and that limits the. There's been more glove side this year, but it limits from where my slot is, and I can't necessarily be like that
Right.
through the baseball. It's going to be more straight down than it is a true like curveball profile, total movement.
Plays perfect with the north-south ball.
It does. It's a
I mean,
great
heck,
north-south
sometimes
ball.
your four seam might have more glove side than the
There
breaker.
has been times that my four seam.
I mean, I
had more glove
love
side.
that. That
Yes,
makes me
too.
very happy.
Yes.
So
Have you specifically focused with your four seam then on trying to carry it, or is that something that with the postural changes and just the change in arm action that happened organically? You don't have to try to, compensate to get to that higher slot.
I mean, I think from where my slot has ended up and trying to just really focus on spinning it as like, it's not necessarily like trying to throw it as hard as you can, right? I'm out there and I'm trying to throw as hard as I can, right? But it's this at the end where you're behind it and you're able to spin it. And plus, I've cut everything forever. And when you cut it right, you get more total spin on the ball. So I think from that and somehow finding that line where it's cut, but it's not too much cut that you lose all of the backspin component of it has been very unique and very just, I don't know if it's finger length, arm slot, perfect blend of all that, but it's just kind of worked out. Because I remember I've cut my four seam, even when I was out here, the four seam probably had perceived cut on it, but I also threw sinkers for some unknown reason.
you're a little seam shift sinker guy back
I
in the
was
day.
a seam shift sinker guy.
Nice.
So yeah.
Come a long way.
Yeah, bit of a chameleon.
Hey, well, the good thing is now he throws changeups that are still labeled as sinkers.
They are still
So
able to
you
sinkers.
still have a sinker.
I still have a sinker, technically. Even though some people on the internet are trying to call it a splitter, which I might technically fall more in that category, but I throw it, I name it, it's a changeup.
Yeah. Spare usage, though.
Yeah, very spare usage.
But Pete gets excited about some of them. Like he threw, was that to Odor, the one that you spiked, but it had good movement?
No, it was not. I did not spike the one. He hit this first single. This was right before we cleared, by the way, with Chirinos. This is the batter.
Oh, good.
Oh.
Got you fired up.
It was like a 15-6. Ends up on the white of the right-handed batter's box. Odor puts it right off the cap and just dribbles it down for an infield swinging bunt single. I was so bad. It was the best one I've ever thrown.
Well, I got you teed up for the next AB.
No, that was, turns out, a big misunderstanding of who
Oh.
actually called time.
Got it.
But-
Got it.
I've never been known to take anything personally. So,
Never.
No.
In any sport.
Never.
Or any realm.
Never. I've never done that.
Are you a long toss guy, or you're like a 120 feet keep on
No,
a
I
line
am
guy?
I long toss, but it depends, right? I'm not trying necessarily to replicate mound stress by throwing the ball 300 feet because I'm on the mound frequently during the year, right? So it's more of a lob. We'll see how far we need to go to feel good, whether it's center field, whether it's if I'm coming off of an inning or a back to back, it stays shorter. Just depends on what I feel like I need at any given day, and I would say a normal in season day, if I haven't thrown the day before, I'll try and stretch it, at center field, be it 220, 240. Right, I'm not going max long toss because I don't have that luxury. Right, my job is to be ready for the game whenever I'm going in there at 9:30. Right, not to see what my arm can do at pitcher stretch at 3:45. But yes, long toss in the off season, I'll get after it when I have the space and the capabilities.
What are your thoughts on like frequency on the mound, like frequency of bullpens in spring training and like late off season? Are you a guy who likes to touch the mound every day, every other day, or you fine with one or two bullpens a week?
I think I threw 2 pins a week this off season, and maybe I'll change the frequency next off season just to play around with it and kind of get to that. But with how my buildup has been, I have the luxury of going in, throwing pins, trimming that time down as spring goes. So it's not necessary. I don't feel like where I'm at in the off seasons, at least right now, I don't have to feel like I'm showing up ready to throw 100 and compete. And this mainly has been from Snides to trying to just like calm down. Like you have a build up time built in, you need to use it and not feel like I'm peaking and then I'm jumping back to square, to bullpens and then going again from there.
Do you try to touch the slope at all with like your plow care stuff, or do you have any sort of like dry rep like off day thing where you like anything like that where you're just trying to feel the slope, or you don't really feel like you need that to
Sometimes
stay in?
in season, if I need to touch the slope, I'll throw. Right, I'll get off. I'll throw 5, whatever. Off season, I did throw more mound stuff this year with you guys than I have in the past, and I think I would say it was beneficial, but I also kind of overdid it a little bit. Had a little shoulder annoyance towards the end of the off season that I had to deal with. So I think as long as I do it within reason, I did like doing some extra mound stuff. I was thinking it might have contributed to me tipping a little bit early in camp, just due to the cadence of effort for fastballs, etc. But yeah, I think that you eventually do need to be on the mound frequently, right? Because that's where the money is made. That's where you need to be to produce. And so the more comfortable and the more synced up you are with feeling athletic on the mound and within your delivery, I think is important.
This is a question for both you guys, but just with all the experience with the Rays organization, what's one thing that you think both of you think they do differently than other orgs, like for better? Like what's a competitive advantage that they have that you maybe don't see in other orgs?
Really good arm talent.
Scouting side?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this for years. Like Kevin Ibach and the pro scouting side is where the money's made. I mean, they acquire so much talent, and not to say that there's like not final pieces of quote unquote development that you can put on somebody, but 9 times out of 10, that's telling somebody like Pete that he needs to throw the ball over the plate in north-south. Like it's not an ability change.
Yes, it's they have done the most incredible job at finding arm talent and then telling the arm talent, hey, you guys are really talented and your stuff's really good. How about we just try throwing strike one? And we go from there. And I think just how the message is presented from Winston, from Snides, from Stan when he was there, now Monkey and everybody, to get people to buy in, just throw your shit over the plate because it's really good and see what happens. And I think that has just been something that everybody has kind of jumped on and ran with.
It's like a, and this especially pertains to Pete. I mean, in all of our models the last 3 years, he's had a top 5 fastball. Could be top 1. Class A oftentimes gets in there.
Well,
but
cutter, whatever.
Whatever. You're top 5 though. but it's like for him, it's a validation of how good he is. It's not like, oh, hey Z, what was my stuff plus on my fastball today?
Yeah.
It's like you don't care about that on a pitch by pitch basis. It's just like, hey, overall, with this amount of sample size, we know your fastball is top 1%. So why don't you throw it with the confidence that it is top 1%?
Yeah.
And then people start doing that and they're successful.
It seems like a very different approach than some orgs where it's like you sign a guy with a certain arsenal to then completely scrap it and try to reinvent the wheel, and now everyone's throwing sweepers one year, or all these sinker guys are now going to carry 4 seams the next year, and it's like constantly chasing the next thing and trying to reinvent the wheel with these guys, whereas the Rays are just like identify it and then allow it to just kind of blossom.
Yeah, let's just look at our bullpen this year for an example, right? You have Thompson, you have Kevin Kelly, who are both low slot, big variability guys. Then you have Poche, who throws left-handed super carry cutters. Who else? J.A., who, I mean, it maybe has the biggest isosceles triangle I've ever seen in terms of fastball, breaking ball, changeup. It's not about making people fit your mold. It is about finding what they're good at and telling them how to use it.
I mean, you look at Tampa right now. Shane is the only pitcher that's homegrown.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, in the rotation right now.
I mean,
because you got Rass, who's a trade.
Yep.
Eflin sign.
Flem's homegrown.
Yanni's
homegrown.
Yanni, so
yeah.
So we got
a
3
couple.
guys.
But I look at the bullpen of who filters through there, and like it's all acquired guys. I mean, you Glasnow, Boz, Pete, J.A., Poche, Beeks. You look at a lot of the staples. Again, it's identify the talent. It's may or may not be getting utilized. Acquire it. Off you go.
Yeah. This is how you utilize it and go. And that was, for me, the biggest thing when they did trade for me. And getting calls from that night from Eric, from Kyle, from Cashy. And the message right away was, we think you are good, and this is what we're going to do. And then getting to Durham with Knapp and him saying, look, the arm talent's there. Maybe we tweak one thing, or maybe we just, see how good you are, and let's try and attack the plate and see what it is, right? And that was, I can remember seeing that corner kind of change in Durham as I just started kind of buying in after a rough stretch and just, I'm going to throw this over the plate, and I'm going to be confident about throwing it over the plate, and we're going to see what happens. And then it was a huge switch for me.
Yeah. One of the really cool things that they did, and I know you didn't come up with Tampa, but Dewey Robinson, who I spoke about in reference on another podcast, he's with the Pirates now, but one of the things when I first signed in 2017, there was a mandate in place that through a pitcher's first 30 to 45 days, maybe even 2 months, you don't change anything with them. Like, also that comes down to like trusting your scouting departments, whether that's amateur or pro side, acquiring a guy. It's like we acquired them for a reason.
Yes.
And so we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel in the first month or two. And I think that carries a lot of weight.
That'd be nice if other orgs would implement that same type of rule.
I don't know why people don't. I mean, we're literally saying how simple this is, but somehow it still just continues to happen. It's mind-boggling, really.
Do you want to get into some of your fun questions?
Yes, yep, I do.
I got a couple submissions from the
I do.
here,
well, the first one, I want to get this one out there because I think it'll provoke a good discussion.
I love discussion.
Mason McCrae, one of our data interns, he is the inventor of the TPD scale.
I love it.
The taste per dollar. Give me your number one on the taste per dollar continuum. I have an idea of where you'll go. I hope I'm right, but we'll see.
Taste per dollar.
Yeah.
Are we going like restaurants? Are we going in specific ingredients?
It's anything It's just per dollar, the most amount of taste you're getting.
This is a real tough one because there's some where I'll use this for example. So we went to a place called Jacob's in Toronto, had a little bullpen dinner, and they comped us some Wagyu, which for me it's too fatty, right? It's almost too rich. So I think I'm going on like the opposite end of the spectrum from that as to how little dollar, how much taste.
That's generally where the scale goes.
Off the top, I think Emo's Pizza,
Okay.
which is a St. Louis style pizza. The majority of the world does not like Emo's. Now, the St. Louisans love Emo's, and I would say their pepperoni bacon taste per dollar is pretty good. In terms of, yeah, I would say Emo's is up there.
When I called you the other day, you were
talking about God's Chicken.
We were talking about God's
Chicken.
I thought you were going to say that was the number one TPD.
I was thinking about this.
Chick-fil-A, in case you didn't get it.
Yes, Chick-fil-A is God's Chicken.
Gotcha.
Not to be irreverent, but that's a funny way to describe
What's
it.
your order at Chick-fil-A?
So I'm a peanut allergy guy. I recently got over my fear of peanut oil because it's not an allergen since it's processed so much.
You and Rylan are basically the same guy.
Same guy. So it depends. Recently I've been crushing the spicy sandwiches. They're delicious. I also go out on a limb and say Chick-fil-A's grilled chicken, pretty good taste per dollar for grilled chicken. Their grilled chicken, be it the nuggets, or I like to order at times just get the regular bun, get the bun that's terrible for you, throw some pickles and a grilled piece on it. Pretty tasty. But yeah, Chick-fil-A is definitely up there on the taste per dollar. Cane's is up there on the taste per dollar.
That's a good couple.
You could get into a real deep debate of burger places and taste per dollar, because how much better? So we'll use like Five Guys,
right,
and we'll use Five Guys and Wendy's. You like Wendy's?
No, not really.
What's your fast food burger? What are we doing?
Man, Ben says
we know Ben doesn't.
He says I can't. He says
yeah.
I can't eat it because I'm fat. He's my
We're body composition challenged.
So we'll say like a Sonic burger.
But I'm with you.
And Five Guys. Is that extra $4 of a Five Guys burger really worth it if you're going by units of TPD?
I saw something that Five Guys doesn't have seed oils, and everybody's raving about seed oils. So I don't know.
Because it's all peanut oil.
Yeah.
Five Guys is pretty fire, though. I will say.
It is.
I think that the extra money you spend that bumps up that taste per dollar is definitely worth it. You get better pickles, you get better beef. The sesame seed bun, like, it's pretty good.
Details matter.
The details do matter.
Next thing we should discuss. And
do you have a TPD?
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
And also their reward system is incredible.
Okay. You gotta.
So if we're gonna throw out a different angle on this, which is like broke college players trying to cook for themselves, I'm gonna nominate chicken thighs, and I'm gonna nominate when you're making rice, get a rice cooker and put rice vinegar in that rice. It makes a huge difference. And chicken thighs are like $1 a pound. Like, you can get them crazy cheap.
In fairness, the chicken thighs are underrated.
Yeah.
They are a little fattier. They are a little tougher, but they are also maybe the most flavorful if you cook them well.
Bake them, a little salt, a little paprika, a little rice, some rice vinegar in there, some salt.
I'm gonna need some more flavor.
$2 a pound for the chicken thigh.
I'm gonna need some more flavor.
You can tell where Ben's coming from.
Yeah, Ben does not eat for pleasure, is what I'm getting.
No, he does not. It's all dialed
all
to his
performance.
routine.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, down to the freaking grain of rice. I'm like, just live a little.
I'll give you another sleeper taste per dollar. Ekron Ranch Black Angus beef. Now the taste per dollar is great because it's pretty low because it's my mom's family farm.
Wow.
So yes, I still, even when I go to steakhouses, something about steaks from the cattle that come from an Ekron Ranch that my parents would always get for Christmas from Nana, as we call her, as my mom's mother. That beef will always be my favorite.
Nice. For the listeners, and I hope there are some that really take advantage of this opportunity, I want you to discuss your Well, first off, let me just circle back. Let's go to what you texted me about a week ago about a proposition that came to your mind that you are now following through on.
Oh, we're talking cards here?
Yeah.
So, yes, the blanket way. I actually saw, so this probably stems subconsciously from Jamal Williams, right? Jamal Williams, now a Saints running back, I believe.
Yes. Yep.
But when he was with the Lions, he would sign whatever, do whatever for people, and they all brought him like anime, manga, stuff like that. So my buddy Drew Millis, who was our catcher, he was caught for me and Flim in the offseason, big, like huge into Pokemon cards. And so I was like, you got any Blazikens? This is my favorite Pokemon. Like, you got any cards? He sold me 4, and I've been, buying up, collecting a little bit since then. So anybody who wants autograph stuff, I'll even try and sneak it from other people that you might want more than me. Send me Pokemon cards, bring them to the field. We'll get it going. I had somebody brought him a signed hat. He gave me a pack, pulled a nice Gyarados card from the Scarlet Violet set that just came out. It's a fun little way for me to kill time, do something collectible, etc. Because I have been building Legos, but it's tough to build on the road and then have to transport them back.
Right.
But yes, shout out to my realtor who got me the Star Destroyer UCS. It's like 4 feet long, 43 inches long, so almost 4 feet long. I cannot wait, and I cannot wait for it to become just an thing that you cannot store. You don't know where to put it in a house, and I'm thinking that I should just put it right on the middle of the dining room table. Would be a great centerpiece.
That's where it belongs, bro.
It is where it belongs.
And then the fun part will be Isaac, who is Pete's 3-year-old son. He's going to want to make it a play set.
He is. I will not let him. I think. We'll figure it out. He might be able to play with it while it's stationary, but like, if I build this 1,000,000-piece Star Destroyer and he breaks it, I will probably resent him for at least a week. I will be so mad for at least a week until I can rebuild it. No, I won't. He's done actually a lot better. He goes through phases where he loves building, so he'll want to build sets, and we'll get Star Wars stuff. Loves somehow Stormtroopers, Clone Troopers are obviously his favorite because he's 3 and they look cool. But he goes through phases of it where he likes them, doesn't like them, etc. So it's always great to try and build something with him, and he will get like 1 bag of pieces in and he'll help, and then he'll be like, I want to play with it, and take the minifigures and leave. So,
well, it's good bonding time for you guys.
Yeah, it's fun. He is a character.
But you told me last night at dinner, I mean, this Pokemon card business could get serious.
It could. So my buddy Drew, Flim, and I, we are trying to offload a bunch of not Drew, Millis. So Drew, we'll call him Millis for this. Everybody knows Drew is Millis, whatever. So Millis is like deep into it. He just put up a Latios tag team on our eBay site, which is a 10 PSA 10 tag team. Their heads are together in a heart. And ungraded, it's like a $500 card. Right, so he is deep into it, like the big money singles he's all in on. Whereas I am finally, I think, graduating from just wanting to rip packs because it's fun and getting stuff into, these are the cards we're after, this is what we're going to do, and actually turn it into something where you can collect instead of just being like, oh, I now have 8 cards out of this 10-card pack that I don't know what to do with. So if any Tread listeners want to buy a bunch of reverse and crappy hollows, I have 3 boxes full of commons, reverses, and non-full art hollows that I need to offload.
There you go. See, this is what I'm talking about. Checking out and checking in, signs a extension, and I get a text message fired up about a $25 Pokemon card. It's the little things in life.
It is. I think, so this was actually, oh man, I'm gonna butcher his actual name. We called him Goose. He was an old pitching coach. He was like, I don't know if it was 2000, it might have been 2000, right before they won the World Series. He was with Arizona. Oh my gosh, I cannot think of his name. I'm going to have to look this up eventually. We called him Goose. He was a special advisor.
Got it.
He's good friends with Danny Clark, who's our pitching coordinator with Texas. And he talked about how you had to have stuff to do off the field. Like you had to have off the field hobbies, and that's something that I very much took to heart because you can't. I mean, it can't just all be baseball. You'll lose your mind.
Right.
Right. There has to be other stuff that you are interested in, that you like, that you have to have hobbies.
Yeah. I don't know anybody who's fully consumed by training and just baseball pitching.
I'm drawing
Thinks
a
about
blank
it all
on
the time.
anybody.
Yeah, I don't know. But it is fun to be in a clubhouse of guys who are diverse in interests.
Yes.
I mean, like in 19, playing like this bridge building game in the
it's
clubhouse. Great. Yeah, it's awesome.
It is. You have to have hobbies.
Have to.
Now, if you don't have to play for a living, I think that training could be a hobby.
Got it.
Right? It could be a,
be an outlet.
Yeah, it's an outlet, right? I think it's, for somebody that, we're out there competing and we're still, playing and we're in that realm. Like that consumption is unhealthy, but, if that is what you have to do to be where you need to be,
right?
Let it consume you and then find a hobby later.
Right. Which is why I'm a pro sim racer now.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually just got this question a few minutes ago. I was requested to ask if you could be a superhero or a villain, who would you be?
I could be a superhero or a villain.
Just pick whoever.
I think I'm going Dick Grayson, the original Robin turned into Nightwing. He's like Batman, but without all of the mental illness. Some of the mental illness, not all of the mental illness that Batman undoubtedly has. So, yeah, that's my pick. He's great, humorous, pretty skilled hand-to-hand combatant for someone with no superpowers. Yeah, I'm gonna go Nightwing. If I had to go villain,
I thought you might go Jeff Passan as a superhero.
Jeff Passan. Are we getting Twitter Jeff Passan, or are we getting non-Twitter Jeff Passan? Because he could swing as more of like an anti-hero.
What was your perception of him last night?
The fucking national treasure.
It's something.
It is. I mean, A+ storyteller. Obviously, as you would. I don't know if he does like frequent like podcasts or anything, but I think he's underutilized as a potential podcaster.
Yeah, he needs to stop writing so much.
I mean, I do love a good article, but I think Passan would be an incredible podcaster.
It's hilarious.
It is hilarious.
Sorry. Anyways, you're
off on a tangent. There's super villain. I don't know. I think that I would almost say like a Dr. Doom type, somebody who's morally questionable but not like deranged. Like, it kind of rules out all of like Batman's rogues gallery because they all have serious issues.
Yeah. Are you a Harry Potter guy too?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You are.
Yes. Big Harry Potter guy.
Who's your person in Harry Potter?
Who's my person in Harry Potter?
I just watched the full series with Mariah last week.
Did you read the full series?
I did not read it. I did not read it.
Fuck.
I mean, I will tell you this. Sam Eads, I brought up Harry Potter. This guy like starts crying. He's like every movie because he knows that the series is ending, he cries. He is that invested. He could tell me every spell. It's incredible.
Interesting. I think, like as a whole, the Marauders were probably the most interesting, right? I wish we got more of Harry's parents, Sirius, Remus, when they were all young. I think that would be a very interesting route. I mean, in terms of main series characters, I don't know. I kind of like Oliver Wood just because he was a Quidditch-obsessed lunatic. I think that is just.
You're telling me
great.
An obsessed lunatic? Does that relate to you or what?
Not to Oliver Wood's extent of like Quidditch is the end-all be-all, but like maniacally competitive.
Yeah.
That part I very much
got it.
And granted, I know it's not. I wish there was more Quidditch.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's very underutilized.
You a Harry Potter guy?
A little bit. I've seen them all. I've read them all.
All right.
I got two.
Oh.
One person asked, "How do you go so long without blinking?" on the mound?
Look, I don't know where this thing started. It's not a conscious or like it's not something that I fucking think about, right? It just is.
You're
I'm
just
out
locked
there.
in. You're locked on the
I'm
target.
just trying to compete.
You're trying to attack the
You
strike
know,
zone.
all the other stuff, I'm not thinking about it.
It's actually incredible though, looking at it from like having sat with you in a bullpen and then
Yeah.
just seeing you throughout time. Like he'll be like that. Like on your rehab stint last year in Charlotte, he's pitching, he's locked, right? So the eyes are going, as people say, he's shooting laser beams out of the eyes. And he threw for funsies, he threw a right on right change up to Eloy, homer.
Yeah.
And so, like, you're sitting in the dugout, psycho guy. You know how it is. You don't want to, like, say, like,
Yeah.
oh, like, good job, whatever. But Pete's the type of guy, like, as soon as he's off the mound, he knows he's done, it's like, check back out, and he's like, what the fuck was I doing? Like,
I
what?
wanted to throw it, man. I wanted to throw it.
But it's not like it carries over super long.
So you're at, right as you cross the foul line, you're back.
Yeah,
in
I
it.
mean, unless it's been like a very bad one, and I'll throw some shit. But once it's out of my system, it's out of my system.
All right, next thing. Which baseball movie do you think captures professional baseball the best? Either a minor league movie or a major league movie.
What captures baseball the best? I don't know if any of them do a great job of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if any do a great job of it. Because yeah, I don't really like. There's not many of them where I have seen it and been like, oh, like that tracks. I do love the scene. Is it in Bull Durham where Nuke LaLoosh is on his stupid guitar, and Crash Davis gets real pissed at him?
That sounds right.
I can definitely relate
Nothing
to that.
captures the clubhouse dynamics.
No, it is such a unique place, and it is also such a place that alternates between just absolutely deranged and unhinged at times.
I think Passan said it best last night. He said, and we were going through teammates
Yes.
who we've enjoyed.
Yes.
If you want to hear one of the best in-depth conversations about a variety of topics you could ever imagine, you go to a bullpen. If you want to hear some of the worst conversations ever, go to the bullpen. You will find them there.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on who's talking.
Who's the biggest character on the Rays right now? Big league side.
I mean, probably Jason Adam. In terms of like bullpen, probably JA. Character, and I mean, I think both Randy and Siri are both characters in their own right. But for like the people that we got to go sit down there with for 8 innings every day, JA is a riot. He is a funny individual. Personal favorite for me is Poche, but that is just because Poe and I are on an incessant shit-talking bender with each other. I mean, it is, and it's been like that for as long as I can remember. I'd say probably since probably last year. I think it was when we really developed into full form. Yeah, it's it's such a wide variety of personalities because you have Kevin Kelly, who I am 100% convinced works for TurboTax in his free time. But he goes out there and it's just absolutely nasty. You know, it's such a wide array of personalities, etc. And the great thing about that is none of it matters, right? Like you can all be characters, but everybody goes out there and tries to do the same job, which I think is fun.
All right, let's steer it back to a real question. Final question.
Or
Okay.
the other one's not real.
Not real.
It's a Fugazi.
Who's
Not
going
real.
to win the NBA
It's a
Finals?
Wazi, it's a woozy.
Okay. You're
NBA.
trying to sneak one more in?
Yeah, NBA Finals.
Okay.
That's what's important right now.
Adam's laughing.
I would
behind the
love
Pete's a huge basketball guy.
I would love a Nuggets Celtics final. I think would be a fun one. Or I would also love to see Jimmy Butler putting the entire 305 on his back again. One of those two. I would love for either. I would say either Celtics or Heat would probably be my choice of teams to win it.
You're not a Celtics guy though, Tatum guy.
Just Tatum. Yeah, just St. Louis guy.
Got it. Got it. The staples of St. Louis: Pete Fairbanks, Tatum, Brad Beal, and Nelly.
John Hamm.
There you go.
John Hamm. John Hamm. Take me off the list. Put John Hamm on there.
All right, sorry. Back to your whatever question.
Final real question. Okay. One piece of advice to younger players. It could be to you like 15 years ago, or any younger players watching it. Just be crazy. I mean, what's the secret? What's the advice you would have given to yourself?
This is not something that anybody's ever had to tell me, but give a shit. In everything that you do, give a shit. Because that is at the core what it takes for you to do anything. Not just baseball, whatever. Care, right? And let that passion, that caring, that desire to want to be good, or in whatever it is, your desire and your passion about whatever your interest is, be it, if it's baseball, great. If it's soccer, if it's
Star Wars.
Yeah, if it's math, if it's, you say you want to become an animator, like, give a shit.
Yeah.
Because that truly is what that's what it takes. You have to care, and you have to care a lot.
I mean, we were talking about something last night at the game about a major league player and like tweaking things.
Yeah.
And did you bring up the point of like, you can change a pitch grip?
Yes, I don't
want to misquote you.
I will. This would be verbatim. I said, it's easy to move your fingers, but it's hard to give a shit. Right? And that's, you have to care. And that is where it's definitely all started for me, because I've given a shit about baseball and sports and winning and all of that for as long as I can remember, often to my own detriment. But you have to care. And that, you can call it whatever words you want: passion, obsession, giving a shit. Caring at its core is what matters to do whatever you want to do in this life.